It all started with a normal day at work. I worked at a small grocery store at the time, and my duties consisted of gathering shopping carts in the parking lot and bagging groceries. Normal, minimum wage stuff. It was rainy that morning, and of course, I was assigned to carts all day. About 2 hours into my shift, I saw a man rushing to get his groceries into the car. It was pouring. I ran over to him and started helping him with his bags. "It's pouring," I said. "Mind if I help you get out of the rain?" "Yes, thank you so much." As he was closing his trunk, he looked at me with a very surprised look on his face. He lowered his eyebrows, looked me up and down, and smirked. "Are you a new hire?" "No, I've been here for a couple of months." "Oh, you are very pretty," he said in a weirdly sensual tone. "Thank you. Have a good day." I shut it down. I was not interested. As I was walking back to the store to hide until he left, I could feel him watching me while I walked away. Nevertheless, I continued to work, not really thinking about it. After my lunch, I was at the register bagging groceries, and I noticed that same man from earlier walk in. I pretended I didn't see him and just kept bagging. He came up to the register and got a single chocolate bar. I didn't give him a bag. He stands towering over me and says, "Aren't you going to bag my item?" "Oh, sorry. I didn't know you wanted a bag for one thing." I put his chocolate bar in a bag and told him to have a good day. "When are you off work, sweetheart?" Man, I'm not comfortable giving that information out." He returned with, "That's okay. You've been here what, 5 hours? You probably get off around 6 or 7, right?" He smiled, winked at me, and walked away. Disgusted, I went to my manager and told her what happened. She told me not to work the lot anymore and asked someone to walk me to my car. So, by the end of my shift, I had a male coworker walk me to my truck, and we scanned the parking lot looking for this man's car. We didn't see him, so my coworker went back inside, and I started my truck. I called my mom to tell her about what happened, and once she answered, I left the parking lot. Literally, the second I turned onto the road, I saw his car pull onto the road behind me. I told my mom I thought he was going to follow me, and she just told me to drive around a bit to try and lose him. I drove around for about 20 minutes, just going in circles around my town. I hit a red light and he pulled up next to me and started yelling something to me out his open window. I, of course, pretended he wasn't there, but I could still hear what he was saying. "You would bear some good kids for me. You'd make a great slave for me, little lady." He then started being very explicit about what he was going to do to me if he caught me. I told my mom I was going to call 911, and if I wasn't home in an hour, then call the police. While I was trying to dial 911, the man speeds ahead of my truck and starts brake-checking me. Frantic, I wait for the closest intersection and turn up the block. My phone fell under the seat while I was turning, so I decided to go to the nearest open establishment and run in and hide and have someone else call 911. The closest open business I could find was a convenience store at a gas station. I pull in, park, and run for my life into the store. I tell the clerk what's happening. She takes me to the break room and locks me in there. While processing that I might have survived this ordeal, I hear the doors of the storefront start violently rattling. And before I knew it, the clerk was locking herself in the break room too. She was on the phone with the police and they were on their way. We were silent, cowering in a dark room. I found myself feeling guilty for wrapping another woman into our worst fear. My thoughts were racing through what I said to him. Did I lead him on? No. I just told him to have a good day. Has he been following me for longer than tonight? How did he know what car I drive? Are the police going to get here in time? Are we going to die? Finally, the small room is illuminated with red and blue lights from the crack under the door. We hear a voice over the intercom telling us it's safe to come out. Shaking, the clerk takes out her keys and opens the door. We walk out and give our statements. After the police leave, I turn to my unexpected savior and profusely thank her. We cry, hug, and she walks me to my car. The next night I went back and brought her some food with an Amazon gift card. I have been in a near-fatal car accident, 10 feet away from a mountain lion in the wild, and I'm a survivor of sexual assault. I can tell you, listener, with total honesty, I thought that was the end of my line. Thank you for listening. Stay aware, be cautious, and stay safe.
I'm new to sharing my weird happenings, but this was so recent that it still has me reeling. I want to scream, but I guess typing will just have to do. Sometime in late 2019, I started seeing someone. We'll call him Shu. Shu seemed nice enough and was generally what appeared to be a somewhat normal guy. He kept insisting we move in together, despite dating for only a few months and the fact I already own a home. That should have been enough to tell me to run, but no, it didn't. Shu started showing up at my house late at night without announcing himself or even being invited. At first it wasn't too bad, but then it became nightly. Then he started lying for attention, even going as far as to claim a close friend died. No, a close friend did not die. He'd show up at my house drunk, demanding attention, and refusing to follow my house rules. If I did let him in, he would refuse to leave. Long story short, Shu's behavior kept on getting worse, showing up drunk from being at bars all night during COVID, demanding my attention despite knowing I'm a high risk. He tried one last time to get into my house and I cut it off right there. I told him to leave me alone. The next morning, I got a call at 5 a.m. to come into work on my day off. I was annoyed, but I agreed. Then the calls started non-stop. I would tell him to leave me alone and hang up on him again and again. When it was time to leave for work, I assumed it was my boss calling to tell me he was here to pick me up, but it wasn't. It was Shu. Well, your boss is here for you. Click. Sure enough, 7 a.m. he was camped out on my porch and tried to grab me in broad daylight in front of my boss. This kind of behavior went on for nearly a week. My employees refused to let me walk home after he started showing up at my place of work at closing time and would try to cut me off when trying to get into my home. I found out he kept on calling because he would hear my phone ringing through the thin walls of my old home, trying to locate exactly where I was. Every day, I would have about 20 calls and 50 text messages. I finally called the police after he threatened that I was too poor for a restraining order. The cops drew the line right there and took it as a direct threat to my well-being. When I got home that day, I noticed cigarette ash all over my porch and even a hole burnt into my patio chair. Soon after, I found a window in the basement forced open with a surgical mask on the floor. I told my roommate and my neighbors what was going on, and I gave a description of Shu and to be on the lookout. Things quieted down after a few months and the phone calls from VPNs finally stopped. I was in the car with my housemate earlier this week and I mentioned a smudge on the garage door. He usually parks in front of the garage and not in it. That's when he told me, yeah, I think a homeless guy was squatting in there for a while. I found a bunch of old clothes in there and then they disappeared a couple weeks ago. My heart dropped into my stomach. I noticed the tracks in the snow were probably too big for my housemate to have left, but then I thought, no way, it couldn't be. I was shoveling snow all through the night for my neighbors all winter long, and he was literally within arm's reach of me, able to see directly into the windows of my house. And yes, I scolded my housemate. I get he's a guy and doesn't really get when a woman says he's dangerous. Call the police if anything weird happens around the house. But come on, man. Shoo, I know you're still around. Let's not meet again, for your sake.
I sat on a wooden bar stool behind the register in the nastiest gas station I've seen before or since. It was my third night in a row on the graveyard shift, despite my constant pleas for daylight hours. At night, the place became purgatory. No matter how hard you'd scrub or how many times you'd mop, a thick film of filth remained on every surface. I would go hours without seeing a single car drive past. I often questioned if the rapture happened and I was the only one left. We were a stone's throw from another 24-hour gas station franchise that was cleaner, properly lit, and had an equipment update within the last decade. Needless to say, I had a lot of downtime. It was midnight. I had 6.5 hours to kill. I was reading from the first volume of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and doing my best not to look at the clock. As I would soon learn, I was being irresponsibly unaware of what was going on around me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a brown wood panel station wagon pull up to a pump. 2 men exited the car and walked inside. One looked older. He was wearing a leather jacket, the same shade of brown as his vehicle. The younger guy was close to my age. He wore a faded Carhartt coat and work boots. Both were covered in a layer of dirt or dust that suggested recent manual labor. These were country gentlemen. I greeted them and asked what I could help them with. They told me they're not interested in buying anything, but they had to stop by and make sure everything was okay here. I was appreciative, albeit visibly confused. The younger man asked me, "Did you know you're being watched?" as he suddenly gestured outside. Sure enough, I saw the dark outline of a man standing completely motionless near a streetlight. None of his features were visible, but I could tell he was staring directly at us. The older man said they had been driving by 45 minutes earlier and almost hit him as he was standing in the middle of the road. He theorized the man was possibly on drugs. They decided to take the long way home that night to see if the guy was still hanging around. Mind you, this was 45 minutes after they almost ran the guy over. Had he been watching me that entire time? I looked outside again to find he hadn't moved a muscle. He was positioned on the border of the streetlight's illumination. I noticed his jaw was moving, like he was saying something. I asked the younger man to lock the deadbolt on the front door, literally my only line of defense in this situation. They both agreed to wait with me in the store while I contacted police. Until that moment, I maintained composure. trying not to make it obvious that I felt extremely vulnerable. Here I was, at the mercy of 3 complete strangers, hoping the 2 I had in front of me were genuinely there to help. When the dispatch operator confirmed they had units on the way, I felt safe enough to end the call. I thanked the 2 men profusely, and they walked out the door. After pausing for a moment, they turned around and came back inside. The younger one plainly stated, "Lock the door. He's coming this way." Then immediately ducks back out the door so I can lock myself in. As I flipped the deadbolt into position, I could see the dark figure moving toward the building at an intentioned pace, making it across the parking lot in about 10 strides. He tried opening the door but found it wouldn't budge. He asked the older man, "Where did the girl go?" who then tried to buy me some time by saying I was in the bathroom and I would be back in a minute. So this man, this possible assailant, walks around the corner towards the bathroom door and disappears behind the building. And of course we don't have cameras outside to keep employees safe on the job. The only 3 working security feeds happened to all be trained exclusively on where the cashier would stand. It felt accusatory. It was at this moment when real fear began to set in, and I lost control of my composure. This unidentified man, who had apparently been watching me for close to an hour, was now laying in wait for me to exit the bathroom. I started to hyperventilate as thoughts of what his motivation could be. Had he been watching me before tonight? Was my store chosen at random? Or did this guy come here because he saw a small female at the register? Was he actually on drugs? Or was he just mentally unstable enough for it to appear that way? Did he have a weapon on him? Or did he plan to use his bare hands for whatever he was going to do? I peeked out the window and saw the 2 gentlemen exchanging glances and muted discussion of how to proceed from there. Thankfully, a local police SUV tore down the street and into the parking lot of the building next door, turning on his flashers and quickly coming to a stop. As soon as I was absolutely sure the man was gone, I sat on the curb outside, sucking every last drop of nicotine out of my cigarette I held in a trembling hand. As if I telepathically summoned her, my phone rings with a call from my best friend. She said she was thinking about me and thought she would call to say what's up, since she knew I would be bored. All I could respond with was, "Get here, now." 20 minutes later, all my roommates showed up in a pickup truck and stayed with me long enough to feel comfortable again. As anticlimactic as this ended, it could have definitely been a lot worse. I could have been robbed, sexually assaulted, or murdered, or all 3. All because I wasn't paying attention. I'll never know the true will of that dark figure under the streetlight, and maybe that's for the best. I don't think I could easily get past knowing what could have lied in store for me, and I wish I could have gotten one of the gentleman's contact information so I could send a beef jerky bouquet or something manly that says thank you. So, dark figure under the streetlight, once you are out of the clink, let's never meet.
This happened like 2 years ago. It might not be that bad, but I still get nightmares about it. Also, English is not my native language, and this is my first time posting here, so please bear with me. I was in 8th grade at the time, and I went to this big public school near my house. It was my first day and all, so the teacher assigned me to sit next to a boy who looked nice and outgoing. So I took a seat, and he was chatty, asking me about my name, my age, etc. He was really friendly and normal. After a few days of sitting next to him, I got this bad vibe, and I never really gave it much thought. Then after 2 months of sitting next to me, he was trying all sorts of things to get closer to me. I was uncomfortable with his actions, but I didn't confront him. I know I was naive and not good with confrontations. But then, John, my guy friend, was assigned to sit next to us. Now I'm sitting in the middle of Dan and John. So John and Dan grew close, and I had no problems with that. Then John was going to eat lunch with us when he brought Dan with him. I was surprised that Dan was now tagging along with us, which he never did before. I never paid attention to it. So Dan ended up sitting next to me, not next to John, but next to me. I was a little confused, but as a naive 14-year-old girl, I brushed it off. But that's when things got a little creepy. He started moving closer to me, like he was trying to let our bodies touch. But as a Catholic girl, I was told to stay my distance when it came to boys. So I moved further away from him, but that didn't stop. He kept on coming closer. That's when my friend told me she needed assistance in the bathroom and that I should go with her. I frantically accepted it, and it turns out my friend noticed how creepy he was being. I thought maybe he just had a crush on me, but I kept my distance, and that's when things got really creepy. One day, I got very sick and I didn't go to school. I stayed home and watched TV, and I checked my Facebook. That's when I saw it. Dan sent me a friend request, which I never accepted, and also a message request. I was curious, so I opened it, and there was hundreds of messages from him. He was asking why I wasn't at school and what happened to me. He was also getting mad and cursing at me, also saying that I was a bitch for ignoring his messages. All those 100 messages were sent on the same day. I felt sick to my stomach. I never experienced this before, but I didn't tell my parents because I was scared that they wouldn't allow me to hang out with my friends anymore. And that night, I was still pretty shaken up from what he did when I received another message from him. And that message still haunts me to this day. Hey, I heard you were sick. Sorry for getting mad at you. I just thought you were avoiding me, so feel better and drink your medicine. I know you haven't eaten dinner yet, so please eat dinner so you can feel better, and then I can see you again at school. That sent chills all over my body because I didn't tell anyone that I was sick, and neither did my parents. And the fact that he knew that I hadn't eaten dinner yet was so weird because it was 11 p.m. and people usually eat dinner at 8. I suddenly felt like I was being watched, so I closed my curtains. I still didn't tell my parents because I was making myself believe that all of this was just a coincidence. I felt better and I was on my way to school. I didn't want to sit next to him anymore, but that wasn't an option because my teacher was pretty strict when it comes to seating arrangements. I was walking to school when I saw him walking behind me. A sick feeling came over my stomach. I quickened my pace, and he did the same. I was so scared, but I finally reached the school's entrance and I ran. Then I saw my friend and I told her everything. She then advised me to stay away from him, and I did. That's when Valentine's Day arrived. Our school makes a big deal about Valentine's Day. They cancel all the classes, but they still ask us to come to school and wear red clothes. I just wore black jeans and a red plain shirt and a black cardigan, nothing really fancy. But that's when I get a message from him asking if he could take a picture of me and print it out so he can watch it while he falls asleep. He sent that message with a winky face. I didn't know what that meant, so I just ignored him. But I saw him staring at me while touching his privates. I was so weirded out that I reported him to our teacher, but they didn't do anything. So my friends just made sure that he stayed away from me. When another guy gave me chocolates and flowers because they liked me, Dan threw angry glares at me, but I just ignored him. So when I was on my way to our classroom to get my bag because I left it in there, I saw Dan and his face was blank. We were both alone in the classroom because our classmates were busy at the gymnasium. I was so scared, but I took out a brave face and I walked to get my bag. He then saw me and screamed, "You're a slut like your mother. Why don't you like me back? God wants us to be together." I was so scared that I froze in my spot. He was looking at me and I felt like I was going to die, but then he stormed off and I was relieved. I left after that and cried in front of my friends, and that was the last straw because I told my parents and they reported him, but the school said they would talk to him, which they never did. He didn't show up at class the next day. We heard he quit school and was working at a small convenience store near school, but that's not the end. He made a fake account with his name, but the picture was me. He sent me another message. It was a screenshot of his phone, and the wallpaper was me, but the picture he showed was not a familiar one. I never took that picture. It was shot from my window while I was sitting in bed and studying, and I had my headphones on. I was wearing a large shirt with no bra and just shorts, and he captioned it saying, "I hope to lay next to your bed." I was really freaked out and I started crying. I told my mom about it and she told me to block it because we were moving out of town in a few weeks, and so I did, but he couldn't take the message. A year after the incident, I was now in the 9th grade. We didn't end up moving because there was a problem in the new house. That's when he created another fake account with my friend John's name and picture on it, and I accepted it. John was talking about creating a new profile, so I assumed it was him. Now Dan, who was pretending to be John, messaged me and said, "I just want to explain. I dropped out of school because of you. I told my parents that we broke up and I can't stand seeing you. I'm also sorry for shouting at you that day, but I want us to be together to have lovely sex and children. If you can't like me back, that's fine to me. Don't block me again because I think I'll kill myself if you do, okay? I love you." I was confused at first because I thought John was messaging me, but then it sank in. This was Dan. I immediately got sick to my stomach and I vomited. I was so scared of what my next move would be. If I blocked him, he can actually kill himself based on his mental state. Instead of blocking him, I asked my parents to reach out to his parents, and they did. His parents were so embarrassed and they apologized to us, through text of course. I heard he was now at a mental facility getting the help he needs, and me, well, we moved out. I cut all of my connections with Dan and started a new life. I now take cautions to whom I befriend. So to the guy who stalked me, let's not meet again.
It's hard for me to write this because it has only been a year since it stopped. It started in 2014, and it happened in my home country of Sweden, when I went to an art school for a summer course as a form of daily activity. The people at this art school were some of the worst people I have ever met, and that included me, because I was kind of trash back then too. I was 21 years old and had little experience of the real world. I had gotten 2 extra years of school because of switching majors and taking an extra year on my second course. So I was literally on my first year of independence. I also have a light form of autism and didn't receive schooling until I was 12, which made me a bit more slowly developed mentally during high school. I'm all caught up now. Basically, I was a 21-year-old with very little experience in life. The people I met at the art school were not, let's say, the highest of achievers. They were some of the meanest and most terrible people I have ever met. They treated each other and me awfully, as well as the teachers. But I was quite the little turd too. In fact, I feel like being around those people also made me worse. What started the stalking was an incident involving acrylic paint. It was going to be thrown away, so some of us took some of the paint so it wouldn't go to waste. and I finally took the remaining paint. Well, It's Over showed up. Her name was Anna, and this is how she introduced herself. My art teacher was pushing these big tables on a trolley through the narrow passageway of the art hall, and Anna, dressed in expensive designer clothes, stood in her way. So my art teacher, not fearing anything, screams, "Move it." Anna snaps towards her with this crazy look in her eyes and shouts, "Excuse me? Do you know who I am? I'm a famous woman." My art teacher, not impressed, responds with, "Okay, famous woman, move it." This is how we learned of Anna, the famous artist. She then proceeded to have all the terrible people of my class schmooze over her and treat her like a celebrity. But her real reason for being there was because of her paint. So, the great hunt began. I was roped into it, and my initial plan was to just give her back her paint so she could be off. Except, during the hunt, I got these terrifying red flags. She kept sniffing the paint of other people to see if they were hers. Apparently, she had poured some kind of oil into the paint so she could sniff her way to where they were. During the hunt, she admitted that she had been put into treatment for the criminally insane because she had stalked a previous schoolmate that she thought had stolen paint from her. She even showed a CCTV video of her old schoolmate pulling a suitcase behind her, saying that's where she had the paint that she stole. I asked her how she got the video, and she said that her dad had connections with the local government, which had gotten the video from one of the local government's cameras, which is illegal for a layman to get access to. During this time, she even showed me the court document, which he had saved as a PDF on her phone. During this time, she also admitted that she had been sending messages to a famous artist in Orebro because a voice from heaven told her to do it, and that he was destined to help her with her career. Like the kind of stare where you can't see any of the eyelids at all. So while she was saying all this, she had this crazy-eyed look on her face. I was terrified of her, and couldn't figure out a way of handing back the paint. So she ended up threatening to have the principal fired if she couldn't search every room for the paint. And when she did find all of her paint, she put it in one of the school's rooms and said she would pick it up when she wanted to. She said that she would come every year during the art exhibition to check if her paint was still there, and that she would sue the school if she found it missing. What a crazy person. End of story, right? How I wish. About 2 years later, I enrolled in a 1-year basic art program at the school. I had completely forgotten about this crazy person. At one point, we were cleaning out the art rooms and her paint was brought up again, and it would again be thrown away. Me, not remembering that crazy famous artist, took a nice crimson bottle for myself, while others took some of the not ruined color. Opened acrylics go bad after a while, for themselves. Then, as we all tried to continue with our lives, the crazy lady one day returned and started sniffing all the color. I didn't recognize her at all, and had forgotten how dangerously deranged she was. I had even forgotten that I had gotten the crimson color from her paint. So when she started interrogating me for why the paint smelled like hers, I didn't know what to say. She also smelled her paint at some other girl's table, and was harassing her as well. Thinking that this was all more fuss than it was worth, I threw away the crimson paint. It had started to cut from age anyway. And that is when everything went to hell, and Crazy-Eyed Anna became my stalker. When she found out that I had thrown away the paint, she became convinced that I had re-enrolled at the art school specifically to steal her paint. She started convincing a bunch of gullible, and to be honest, low-achieving people that this was true, and I started being harassed. It started with a physical attack. I was painting alone in the evening, minding my own business, when this huge brute ran into me, tackled me to the floor, and hit and kicked me. While this was happening, Crazy-Eyed Anna was fake crying in the corner, but I could see on the floor how she went from fake crying into gleefully smiling as I was being kicked and hit. Another girl she had recruited picked up and smashed my phone, breaking it. As the guy stormed off and the second girl followed, I stumbled onto my feet and asked Anna why she had done this, and the answer she gave me made me realize what kind of person she was. So you will know that I can hurt you if I want. That is the answer she gave me. I later asked the brute why he had attacked me, and he said that he hated people who stole. This guy is training now to become an art teacher. I fear for those children. I had bruised my ribs but were not allowed to go to the hospital because the principal didn't want to get involved. And since my phone was broken, I couldn't call for an ambulance. So it took so long to get to the hospital that the outside signs of the abuse had healed. During this time, Crazy-Eyed Anna started wearing a crimson jacket wherever she went. I asked her why she was wearing it, and also said she looked pretty, thinking that talking nicely to her would start a friendly conversation to maybe smooth everything over. Well, Anna is not like normal people and does not think like normal people. Her response was that she wanted me to think of her every time I saw this color, and said that she had seen it work in a movie. She then added, "I am more beautiful than you will ever be." Wherever she went, she had a horde of schmoozers all around her, all thinking she was some kind of famous and fancy artist. But eventually she had to leave the school, and I thought I had peace. Except she one day suddenly showed up and gleefully presented me with the school's Russian exchange student. This student had been sitting at my table every day for weeks, and I hadn't paid it any mind, because why would I? She was allowed to sit there. But this is when Crazy-Eyed Anna drops the bombshell that this exchange student was A, not a real exchange student, and B, she had been putting her phone on the table each mealtime, while having it on speaker with Anna on the other end, silently listening in on my conversations. I remember when she first told me this, how I didn't believe it. I didn't believe, and a part of me still had a hard time realizing the lengths this woman was going to were real. But it was what she said next that terrified me most. She said, "I know about the secret messages behind your words. I know what you are up to, and I heard a voice from above that told me that it was my mission in life to keep an eye on you and to make sure you behave. The abuse at school escalated quickly after this, I was harassed and cornered in every classroom and chased around school, and at the same time I got no help. It escalated into a happening one late weekend night. I was sitting in the school's texture room when a guy suddenly burst in and started running towards me screaming, "What makes you think you can sit here?" He did not go to this school. I jumped out of a window and started running towards my dorm, and managed to call 112 in the meantime, the emergency number for Sweden, and managed to scream out that I needed help and where I was. I ran towards my dorm, but another guy was waiting for me there. So I ran towards the head building, but a third guy was waiting there. They cornered me, and I remember how scared I was. I thought I was going to die. But then, a light of hope. Blue and red lights from the road. I was saved. I remember how happy I was to see that police officer. Everything would finally be over. And then, he walked up to the girl who orchestrated all of it, Malin, and he greeted her like a friend. And I knew it that moment that he wouldn't save me. I screamed for help and he ignored me. She told him that there was no issue here. He said he was looking forward to seeing her around town. Then he left. He left me. He just drove away. The last thing I remember is the backlights of that police car driving away. I wake up the next morning, laying on the ground with a huge bump on the side of my head. I don't know what happened. Malin claims they never touched me, and I just passed out when one of the guys grabbed me. I know better. I know the pain I felt and the huge bump on the side of my head. I called 112 and I called for an ambulance. At this time, because of the abuse, I had memory loss and couldn't quite tell the lady what the issue was. But I made a mistake. I told her I had called 112 the day after, and that a police officer just left me. And she got mad. Really, really mad. She told me that I was slandering her coworker and to only call if I actually needed help. And then she hung up. I was alone again, with no one. Not a single person on my side. I tried to make a police report against Anna and Malin, but the officer had heard about me and deleted my report. It was during this time that I had enough and thought about ending my own life, so I was forcefully put in a mental health ward. And the stalking didn't stop. Crazy-eyed Anna had a friend of hers be committed so she could come into the ward as a visitor in order to harass me. When I tried to go to art school again, she had people she had threatened join the same program so they could keep an eye on me. At home, she would have another guy she had threatened to park outside my house a few times a week in order to scare me. During this time, she would also have things stolen from me. Things like shoes, gloves, and the like. And according to the people doing the stealing, this was because she had watched a movie where someone steals items and then puts them back to make someone go insane from the harassment. Crazy-eyed Anna would call me a few times a year, lying about being a data collector to get private information out of me. Something that took a few years to even catch on to, because she lived in a big city far away at the time. She constantly forced others to do the stalking for her. Most of them at one point given drugs to, and then would get them to do what she wanted by threatening to report them to the police if they wouldn't. Others she just bribed with money or charmed. I have gone for hour-long bus rides where someone admits to being there for her sake. Most people are afraid of her because she won't leave them alone, and she will do to them what she does for me if they don't say yes to her. One girl was roped into standing all dressed in red outside my supermarket. Another girl was also roped into sitting with her car outside my house for hours, a few days a week. All because of the fear of this woman. I learned from a cousin of hers that she affords all of this because she won an art prize for 500,000 SEK at one point. It's why she thinks she is famous. I also learned that most of her biological family has cut contact with her because she has been doing this since she was a teenager. And yet, even with that information, no one would listen. When I tell people what she had done to me, people call me the crazy one. I have no history of delusions or of making up tall tales. Yet it was so much easier for people to just think I am crazy. I have even been forcefully medicated at some points with psychosis medication that baffled doctors lamented over not working. Not even my family believes me. Something that has forever barred how much trust I can put into the relationship between us. I asked her once why she was doing all of this, and she said, "To punish you." I asked her for how long I would need to be punished, and she answered, "For as long as I want." At one point, I even considered killing her. I am the kind of person who catches flies alive in a cup and lets them out the window. I have never harmed another human being. I have never been violent, yet at one point felt so desperate for freedom that I would take prison rather than being haunted by crazy-eyed Anna anymore. I was more afraid of her than of prison. Then it stopped. It just stopped. Still, a year later, I don't know why it stopped. Nothing in her history tells me that she would stop willingly. So I am convinced that either she has run out of people to threaten into doing her bidding, or something has happened to her. It's possible that one of those people finally reported her, and actually got taken seriously. I don't know. Even so, I can't feel relief. Not yet. I'm still afraid it will start again, and I have given up all hope of being taken seriously by the police. Anna, let's not meet. Thanks to ScreamWithMeStories for helping me out with the video. He narrates true scary stories for your listening pleasure. I love his work and highly recommend checking out his channel by clicking the logo on screen or the links in the description. If you liked these true Let's Not Meet scary stories, click the playlist on the screen for another True Scary Stories Reddit Let's Not Meet compilation. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time with another story.